Hi everybody, this is cubeofcars, I am Mike, and this is our 1979 Mercedes 280 TE station wagon, which I bought years ago in Bangkok. For all of you who already wait for the next episode of our van build series, please be a little bit patient because we will continue the van conversion in the next video. Now I take a short break from German winter and spend a few weeks in my second home on the island of Phuket in Thailand. And those of you who have been watching for years already surely remember my 280 TE station wagon, which has sadly been sitting for nearly 2 years now in the garage because I was not able to enter Thailand for obvious reasons. Surprisingly, after recharging the battery, the van started with the first turn of the key. And of course it got an oil service and a proper wash and clean, but now we want to find out if that's enough already to take it on a really big new road trip, which I invite you to join. Let's see how fit this little bit neglected 43-year-old Benz really is. And yeah, maybe we break down after a few miles and have to tow it back home. I wouldn't be totally surprised if that happens, but whatever happens, it will surely be an epic adventure.
Thai is the navigator and co-pilot on this trip, and he will also have to organize anything that requires Thai language.
You also speak Thai?
As long as your Thai is better than mine, that's your job. Okay, let's start.
So what is our plan? We start on the island of Phuket, which is in the south of Thailand, and want to head north. Chumphon at the Gulf of Thailand makes an ideal halfway stopover on the way to Bangkok, where we have plans to do some city sightseeing. When we reach the capital city of Thailand, we are already 900 km on the road. From Bangkok we want to turn east into an area called Isan. That's a beautiful rural landscape and very much unknown to tourists. In the far east of the Isan, and after about 1,500 km, we will encounter the mighty Mekong River, which forms the border to Laos. From here we want to follow the Mekong all the way north and later west to Nong Khai and then Chiang Khan, which will be halfway of our journey after about 2,000 km on the road. Next stop on our westbound loop will be Sukhothai, the capital of the first Thai kingdom, and then south of that Ayutthaya, another ancient capital city and our last major sightseeing spot. What's left is then a 1,000 km drive back home to Phuket. But first of all we have to pass the checkpoint between Phuket Island and the mainland, that's this building here, and we really hope that there are no pandemic restrictions which stop our trip already after the first 10 kilometers.
But nobody really checked anything, so we expected maybe that because of quarantine reasons we have to show whatever kind of certificate, but nothing was necessary.
Time to say goodbye to Phuket and leave the island, and for that we don't even need a ferry.
This was now Sarasin Bridge. That's a bridge which connects the island of Phuket with mainland Thailand.
Our destination for today is Chumphon at the Gulf of Thailand. That's about 400 kilometers and we calculate with 6 hours of drive. An average of 70 kilometers per hour sounds over modest, but believe me, you won't manage to do much more here in Thailand. Even if the usual highways look exactly like this one here and allow speeds around 100 km per hour, these roads always go straight through villages and cities as well, with red lights and city traffic which ruin the achievable average. And stops for snacks and drinks don't help either, of course.
Good thing in Thailand is that you find food and snacks and good drinks everywhere along the road, and this is now one of my favorite. That's a Thai milk tea.
It's called Chai Yen.
and it's made from a strong black tea and sweet condensed milk plus ice. And now it's Ta's turn to drive, and I will enjoy my iced tea. As you will have noticed, the clouds are more and more dark, and our wipers are not really the best anymore after 2 years of not being used. But no problem, you just have to look out for such a mini shop along the road where someone will change the rubber of your wipers. Only the rubber. In Thailand it's not really usual to go to a main dealer and change the whole wiper like you would do in Germany. But honestly, those new rubbers here are not really Mercedes OEM quality, but neither is the price.
For 400 baht, that's about 11...
No,
What?
100 each, 200.
For both of them, that is about 5 to 6 euro. And I think for that money, you cannot make any mistake.
We are close to Chumphon now already, and due to the imminent rain, we will directly go to our Airbnb. The city of Chumphon is nothing really special, so we opted for a bungalow outside of the city in a really cool jungle setting next to a small river, which already looks like having high water. So we hope our bedroom won't be flooded next morning in case that the rain gets worse. And next morning we still have dry feet while having our coffee on the terrace. And there are some really interesting reptiles to watch in the river just some 5 meters away from us. This here is a quite huge monitor lizard. But rain got worse, much worse. So our next route section from Chumphon to Bangkok could become more stressful to drive, especially as we expect more traffic the closer we get to the capital city.
And then in February, I mean, it's completely unusual. And unfortunately, I didn't check the weather forecast before starting on the trip, so I really hope that this is not the weather for the next 2 weeks now.
And you have surely noticed that our new 5 euro wipers are a bit squeaking, which doesn't make things better. But suddenly a second squeaking noise joined the concert, and that squeak was definitely worse. One of the belts is the culprit, and we decided to better head for a repair shop right off the bat before breaking down in pouring rain somewhere at the side of the road. And these guys are specialized in belts, so it's an easy job for them to change the belt of the alternator. The positive bottom line is that repair shops in Thailand will always do the repairs immediately if you are on the journey through. There is no tomorrow or next week in such a case, but they will start straight away and let the other work rest.
With the new belt now, the squeaking noise is luckily gone, and the rain is also gone, but now we are heading into the next adventure, that is the Bangkok rush hour traffic.
And daylight will soon be gone, which doesn't make navigation easier. But the situation got worse, much worse. In search of our hotel, Google sent us in smaller and smaller roads. But not only were the roads too small for a car, they were also full of people, full of stalls, scooters and whatever else. There were just centimeters left before running over someone's feet or scratching our pants at one of those bloody handlebars.
Also irgendwo bleiben wir jetzt da stecken. Das ist ja echt übel.
Namin war Konsumi.
Now we have finally arrived in Bangkok and we can enjoy our dinner here in the street. The traffic in Bangkok was not so bad. In fact, I expected more. Just the last few meters in these narrow roads in the neighborhood of the hotel, that was an absolute stressful disaster. But we managed that, and now we can explore Bangkok. Und schmeckt's?
Sehr gut.
It's nearly surreal how quiet the setting of our hotel is, despite being in the heart of Bangkok. And other than anyone would probably expect, using your own car for city sightseeing is very well possible. But probably you should like challenges, of course.
Turn right, then turn left.
Luckily the weather today is a little bit better, so we can do our sightseeing program, and we start with the Grand Palace because that's the greatest and most famous attraction here in Bangkok. And we are already on the road now and try to get through the city traffic to the Grand Palace.
Finding a parking spot close to the palace was easier than expected as soon as you realize that there is some kind of private management of empty parking spots along the road. Grandmas put pylons in empty spaces and then ask for small money to let you park there. Of course, that's nothing official, but it works, and we paid only 50 baht or less than $2, cheaper than a ticket for public transport. As soon as we reach the Grand Palace, all clouds have disappeared and we finally get some nice shots with sunshine and blue sky. The Grand Palace is the official residence of the kings of Thailand since 1782. Part of the palace complex is also Wat Phra Keo, or the Temple of the Emerald Buddha, which is the most sacred Buddhist temple in Thailand. The atmosphere here is absolutely one of a kind and mystical. All the gold and all those mythological figures, half animals, half humans, or the giants that guard the gates. There is a good reason that every tourist visits Grand Palace, because this place is absolutely worth it and my personal #1 in Bangkok. Nevertheless, we were nearly alone. That clearly shows how bad the situation of the Thai tourist industry currently still is. Next on our plan is the Chao Phraya. I love the busy vibes of this giant river, the mix of tatty old houses, exotic temples and posh and expensive condominium towers along the riverside. The easiest way to enjoy the scenery is on board of a boat, preferably with open roof deck. One location where you should stop and jump off the boat is the quite new Icon Siam Mall. Okay, it's also one of Asia's biggest malls, but what makes Icon Siam stand out for me is its location directly at the Chao Phraya. Of course, you can go on a shopping spree here, but much better is visiting the terrace on the top floor, which offers sensational views of the river. And this is completely for free. We enjoy this view so much that we decide to come back in the evening for a second visit. You could call the whole decoration, those illuminated sculptures, trashy, but we really love this exotic and surreal atmosphere. And the view from the terrace at night is just awesome. Next morning it's time to leave. The most important question after 2 days driving crisscross in the capital of Thailand is now:
How is driving in Bangkok?
Easier than I expected. When I remember 5 years ago, it was definitely more traffic than it's now. I think I could apply for a taxi license here in Bangkok.
80 baht.
That's the elevated tollway, which should get us fast out of the city of Bangkok now. And yeah, we are heading about 500 kilometers east now
into the Isan. The Isan is the region in the northeast of Thailand which tourists have not yet on their list. But the landscape of this area is often beautiful, as you will soon see. Close to Bangkok, the highways are still full of traffic, but that will change the more we get east. Instead of shop houses and industry areas, roadsides are increasingly green and the highways empty. Typical one-street villages look like this one here, a row of shop houses along the main road, and that's it. And there are some really strange vehicles on the road. The Isan is very sparsely populated compared to other parts of Thailand, and the landscape is dominated by rice fields which are dry and harvested at this time of the year. Large singular trees in these rice fields often create a picturesque touch. Best is to leave the highway and roam small secondary roads to discover the small villages and the natural beauty of these farmlands. Compared to Bangkok, this is like being in a completely different country. Of course, also in this region, golden temples grace every second village, and we have all that for ourselves and don't have to share those places with any other tourist. The next day, we continue our journey towards the east until we finally encounter the mighty Mekong River, which forms the border to Laos. But we are not in a hurry and take it slowly. By the way, this is another one of these strange vehicles here, and also this one. Iced cappuccino is another one of my favorites. Thais always add sweet condensed milk, which is probably the reason for its unique taste here. After a few more kilometers, we reach the eastern end of Thailand and are surprised about the temperatures here. We have finally arrived at the mighty Mekong River after about 1,500 kilometers on the road, and here in the background you can see the bridge which crosses the river to Laos. Unfortunately, we cannot cross because of COVID reasons. It's too complicated with quarantine and whatever. So we will now continue on the Thai side up north to Chiang Khan, which is, I think, a nice old city to visit. And we were very much surprised with the super cold weather here. We are used in Phuket and also in Bangkok to have 30 degrees and nothing less than 25 even at night. And here it's suddenly just 13 degrees Celsius, and we had to buy some old-fashioned pullovers just to keep a little bit warm. But that will not stop us from continue traveling now. Our first stop on the way north along the Mekong is Nakhon Phanom. The temples in this area have a very unique style, and Wat Mahathat in view of the Mekong River is one of the most beautiful. With the green Lao mountain range in the background, the scenery of the Mekong looks here much more dramatic than in the area of Mukdahan, where we had the first look at its waters. Nakhon Phanom also offers something very rare for Thailand, proper bikeways. So it's a fast decision to exchange the Benz for 2 bikes on this day and enjoy the views of the river at slow speeds. The next morning we head north towards Nong Khai on small secondary roads. Big old trees grow on both sides and create a jungle feeling. Unfortunately, the days of these trees are counted due to road widening projects everywhere underway. That's really terribly sad. We are now somewhere between Nakhon Phanom and Nong Khai in the north of Thailand and go all along the river Mekong. And whereas you have seen in the video that most of Isan is quite dry and you can only see the dry rice fields, sometimes you find a spot like this here where they have enough water to grow the rice 2 or 3 times per year. And then you have this lush green landscape which looks absolutely beautiful, and on this spot here we take a rest now and make a short picnic. In the vicinity of Nong Khai there is a very special sculpture park, Sala Keo Ku, created by the Thai artist and spiritual cult leader Bunlur Sulilat between 1978 and his death in 1996. The sculptures are inspired by Buddhism and Hinduism and are of giant size. The biggest ones are 25 meters high. But it's not just the size, but also the fantastic and very detailed motifs that are so intriguing. We definitely like this place a lot. At sunset we finally arrive in the city of Nong Khai. The restaurants along the river offer a breathtaking view, and this salad with crispy Mekong fish and lemongrass was also the best tasting dish of our whole road trip. Watching the performance of the local band, on the other hand, would have required intoxicating amounts of alcohol on my side. The next morning we enjoy breakfast with magnificent views and plan our next route section to Chiang Khan. We didn't know yet that minutes later all plans would be waste paper and we would be spending the day in a repair shop instead. So what happened? The brake warning light didn't go out after starting the vents. No good sign, and we soon find out why. This puddle of brake fluid makes the problem obvious, a leak in the brake system. Luckily, Nong Khai has a specialized repair shop for brakes, and the guys there, in typical Thai manner, immediately started with the repairs. Very surprisingly, the necessary spare parts, rubber seals and new brake pads were available in Nong Khai and didn't have to be shipped from Bangkok. So our Benz is back on the road before lunch. If we call the first repair with the squeaking belt the elimination of a minor nuisance, then the leak in the brake system was the first real breakdown, or better say it could have resulted in a real breakdown if we hadn't noticed that early enough and get it repaired. And the problem was a rubber seal which probably got damaged by a little bit of corrosion, again caused by 2 years of inactivity. But all of that is repaired now. A good thing in Thailand is if you go to a repair shop, usually they start work directly, and we lost just 2 hours and it costed us 120 euros, so not a big deal at all. Opposite, you can now see the Lao city Vientiane, which we would love to visit, but for COVID reasons it's too complicated. So we will continue on the Thai side, and the next city we visit is Chiang Khan. The route section between Nong Khai and Chiang Khan is by far the most beautiful. It's a small curvy road which follows the Mekong River, and due to the hilly grounds, the road offers spectacular views of the river at every corner. Beyond that, the Mekong itself looks very different here. Not just a wide uniform stream, but the water is peppered with clusters of small and often green islands. And the sculptural hills of Laos are the stunning backdrop. That's for sure the highlight of our 4,000 kilometer road trip. It's already dark when we arrive in Chiang Khan, the perfect time to discover the famous walking street with its century-old wooden houses. After all the adventures of the day, we also are very hungry now. What a gorgeous view to wake up with in the morning. Our Airbnb is located in one of those old houses along the Mekong River side. Chiang Khan has a nice boardwalk along the riverside and life seems to be very slow and cozy here. The riverbank is an exotic fruit and flower garden, quiet and peaceful and very different to the hustle and bustle that we know from other parts of Thailand. And the two fishermen look like being from another time. Speaking of time, for us it is time now to leave Chiang Khan, and since here we are furthest from home after about 2000 kilometers on the road, this is the first day on our way back home to Phuket. Our next destination now is Sukhothai, the capital of the first Thai kingdom. To get there, we go on a roller coaster ride through Loei province. It's a landscape of green hills and it's an enjoyable drive up and down on completely empty roads. Far and wide we are more or less the only car. The closer we get to Sukhothai, the flatter the scenery. These here are Siamese buffaloes, which are native in Thailand.
So what is Sukhothai? Sukhothai is a Thai kingdom in central Thailand, founded in the mid-13th century, and it existed for about 200 years. And then it fell under the influence of Ayutthaya, which is 350 kilometers south. We will now visit the beautifully restored Sukhothai Historical Park, which is a World Heritage Site.
Sukhothai is important for Thais because its founding is somehow the beginning of the Thai nation, and King Ramkhamhaeng of Sukhothai is said to have invented the Thai script. With a size of about 2 by 2 kilometers, most of the interesting ruins are in easy walking distance, and we spend about half a day exploring, again nearly alone. Some of the ruins date back to the older Khmer Empire, that's why you can sometimes see similarities to the ruins of Angkor in Cambodia. From now on we are only heading south. It's 1,300 kilometers to Phuket, but we won't do that at once, but make a stopover after 350 kilometers in the famous city of Ayutthaya. Ayutthaya was originally also part of the Khmer Empire. The Thai kingdom of Ayutthaya was then founded in the mid-14th century, and it was the capital of Thailand until 1767, when it was destroyed by the Burmese. The ruins of Ayutthaya in the historical park are today also a World Heritage Site like Sukhothai. And you can again see the Khmer influence on the architecture of the temples. There seems to be some kind of festival in the coming days, and this here could be some kind of rehearsal, but we don't have the time to stay longer and wanna drive the 1000 km back home to Phuket in one take starting tomorrow morning. 1 hour after our start in Ayutthaya, we are already on the highways bypassing Bangkok. What a difference this fast-paced mega city is compared to the easygoing rural areas we had discovered in the last days. Time for a second coffee, and we have found our favorite coffee chain in Thailand after trying really all of them.
Also der wievielte Kaffee ist das jetzt, den wir gekauft haben auf der Reise?
About 100.
Und welcher ist der,
100 cup already, yeah.
und welcher ist der beste?
I think the best is in Tannin.
Gas station coffee.
Yeah.
I think so too.
This time we also have the chance to see more of the roadside than 2 weeks ago when we passed here in torrential rain. About 150 kilometers south of Bangkok, the endless row of industry and shop house buildings make room for trees and green landscape along the road. Best speed on these Thai highways is around 90 kilometers per hour. That's of course a very relaxed pace for a 280 TE. Looking at the gauges, the temperature throughout the whole trip was always very close to around 175 Fahrenheit or 80 degrees Celsius. Oil pressure is rock solid at 45 psi or 3 bar, and finally we will need less than 1 liter of oil on the whole 4,000 kilometers. Sunset comes early in Thailand at about 6:30 PM, and we are just in the area of Chumphon now. So we will have at least 4 hours of nighttime driving ahead of us, but that shouldn't be a problem. Five hours and a few coffees later, we have finally reached the finish line. Finally, we are back home in Phuket. It's now close to midnight and we needed about 14 hours, including breaks, for our trip from Bangkok to Phuket. I think we have proved that an old Benz is of course still good for a 4,000 kilometer road trip, and that's even true after sitting for nearly 2 years in the garage. Okay, we faced 2 minor repairs on the way, but that was definitely nothing that could stop us from really enjoying this epic road trip. If anyone wonders how much gas we needed for the road trip, which was a total of 4,058 kilometers, we needed quite exactly 20,000 baht in gas, and that is about 460 euro or 600 US dollar. And the average consumption was 11.8 liters. I really recorded that very much in every detail, and the minimum that we had was 10.7 and the maximum was 12.3. And that's really okay for a 43-year-old 2.8 liter 6-cylinder engine, I think. For accommodation we paid an average of 1,000 baht. That is about 28 euro or 30 US dollar. So Thailand is definitely still a destination for traveling on a low budget. I say thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please like, share, comment and subscribe. All of that would help for the YouTube algorithm. And next video we will again continue with our van build series in Germany. And if you live in Thailand and want to go on a road trip like this with this kind of car, please contact me because the Benz might be up for sale. So just send an email if you're interested. See you next time.